If you've done anything on learning styles, you have probably been introduced to the modalities, and you've learned about auditory learners, tactile learners, kinesthetic learners, auditory, visual, etc. We're not going to talk about any of that. We're going to talk about a thing called a format system. This came from a professor at a university in Chicago, Illinois. And what happened was she discovered that when she would use a particular teaching methodology with her students, say on Monday, about 40% of her students would say, yeah, I get this. And about 60% of them would go, say that again? Do that again? And then on Wednesday, when she had the same students again, she would use a different teaching methodology. And all of a sudden, many of the students in the 60% would say, now I understand. Well, we respond like that based on our learning style. And every one of us has a dominant learning style. Now, culture influences learning styles. The culture I'm raised in influences my learning style. But I have a dominant learning style, and you have a dominant learning style, and the dominant learning style is the way that your children, the way your parents, the way we and the students around us prefer to learn if we were given a choice. And it starts at heredity. It starts at conception. Everyone has a learning style. Only believers have spiritual gifts. There is some correlation between learning styles and spiritual gifts. But everybody in the culture, everybody in the world has a learning style. And that learning style stays with us forever. But within the context of learning in life, I may realize Alex has some skills I don't possess. So I will steal some skills from Alex and use them because they worked, but I maintain my dominant learning style. I remember when our daughter was 14 years old, and my wife looked at me and she said, I have poured my whole life into this girl. And she turned out like you. And I didn't know anything about learning styles. And I thought, too bad. Once I understood learning styles, I realized that she was like me from the day she was born. And that's why we butted heads all the time. She just came to see me. She just came from Eugene, Oregon. And after she was going to stay, they stayed 5 days, 6 days. And I realized after 3 days, I was really getting irritated with my daughter. And then I said, oh, she's acting just like me. That was her dominant learning style. And I really refer to it very often as not only the learning style, but the personality type. So as we look at the learning styles, we know that our learning style is going to be shaped by our parents, by the experiences we have in life, and by the expectations of our job, of our culture. Now, to give you a really good, I'm going to save that. I'm going to do it until you get this picture up. As you look at this picture up here, at the top of the page, it says concrete learner and people. That means that the dynamics and the titles don't mean anything. The dynamic learners and the innovative learners, those two groups of learners are by their very nature people. What does that mean? It means that given a choice, they would prefer to work in a group rather than alone. They are concrete thinkers, and that means that as you're teaching them, give them things to look at, to touch, to manipulate, as they're learning. That's how they learn. Okay? Now, those are the characteristics shared by these two learners. The innovatives, and we're going to go through each one real quickly and then come back in depth. The innovative learners that walk into our classroom are the kids that they get up today. The adults, they get up today. They live today. And at the end of the day, they say, this was a really nice day. Too bad the rest of you had to make it so complicated. You could have enjoyed your day. That's the way they live. They just enjoy life. But they learn, and this is really important, they learn by saying things, why are we doing it this way? Why do I have to do that right now? Why aren't we doing it the way we did it yesterday? So they learn by saying why and why not. I was doing this workshop at a church in North Carolina, and the young girl that was running the sound equipment, at the break she came up, she said, wow, this makes so much sense. She says, I'm innovative. And she said, when I was growing up, my parents would tell me to do something, and I would say, why? And they would say, don't be rebellious, smart kid. And she says, I was never trying to be rebellious and ugly. I needed inside to know why I'm supposed to do this so that I am comfortable with it. And then they would tell me to do something, I couldn't do something, and I would say, why not? And they would say, because I'm your parent, I said so. And she says, I needed to know the reason for the why not. She says, I never knew anything about learning styles and innovatives. She says, if my parents had known, and instead of getting angry at me when I said why or why not, they would have taken the time to explain it. You see, that's because two things. The innovatives, wrong button. The innovatives are reflective, and that simply means that when they are asked to do something, they need to process the reason based on how they how they feel. You see, because the innovatives think with their heart, so they wear their emotions on their sleeves. And they are the ultimate unconditional lovers. Now my Jonathan stands at 6'2", the very handsome, black-haired guy. He's innovative. And sometimes he will walk up to me, he will put his arm around me, and he will lay his head on my shoulder. And I will say, what's up? He will say, nothing, I just thought you needed a hug. What was he really saying? I needed a hug. I needed a hug. The next group of people we're going to talk about in a moment are called analytic learners. These are the learners that your culture prefers, because these are the good students. They use their head. They think. They are reflective, and when you ask them a question, they may say to you, give me time to, before I answer the question. They are the thinkers and the watchers. They will say to you, what was that formula again? What was the question again? So they learn by asking what questions, because they love gathering information. They love using their head, and they just love accumulating information that they can turn into wisdom. Wisdom is skillfully using information. They are reflective, but if we look down here, we say, uh-oh, the analytics are non-people people. So they would prefer to work rather than in a group of people that are going to drive me nuts. That's the way they think. They are also abstract learners, which means that as they are learning, when you ask them questions, they don't necessarily need a concrete example, because when you ask a question, the brain comes on, it starts processing everything they already know, searching for not just the answer, the right answer. That's very important to analytics. The third group we'll talk about in a few moments are also non-people people. They are also abstract learners, and they are called common sense. And the common sense learner says, I like to do things step by step. Common sense learner says, I will probably ask you, hold on, how does this work? They're saying, show me. demonstrate it for me. And the common sense learner is characterized by the words justice, did it again, and hands. Justice meaning that life has a long list of rules that everyone must follow except them. They like making the rules, but they don't like following them. Ah, you got some kids like that, don't you? They like to work with their hands, so they like to do things they can manipulate. They like to build things, they like to get into it. Now, here's the struggle for the common sense learner. They are active, not reflective. If the reflective learner thinks, processes before they act, what does the active learner do? They act before they think. So they get into a lot of trouble. And they put their foot in their mouth a lot, don't they? The dynamic learners we'll talk about are active learners, but they are people, and they just love to experiment. Creativity to them means trying it a different way, because they are constantly saying, well, if we did it this way, teacher, look how much better it could be. If we did it this way, boss, whoops, look how much better it could be. And they have a tendency to be rather pushy. Not because they want you to do it their way, but because their mind is saying, hey, that's a great idea, but as I think about it, if we did it this way and involved them, it would be so much better. And they are characterized by the words courage and spirit, meaning that when they do things, they jump into it, they have a lot of courage, and they jump into it with everything they have. Now, I have a very good friend named Ray Zacharias, and Ray Zacharias is dynamic. Okay? And Ray Zacharias and I were at a conference in San Antonio, Texas. Now, I want to demonstrate to you how expectations influence learning style. You with me? We're at this conference, we're up in the balcony, and this guy preaches a magnificent sermon. And Dynamic Ray says, man, I wanted to just jump up and shout, hallelujah! Then I remembered I'm Southern Baptist. That's what he said. What was he saying? As a dynamic in my spirit, I wanted to jump up and say, hallelujah! But the expectations are, we don't do that. Yeah, see what I'm talking about? Now, let's jump into each one individually. Innovatives are typically sociable, friendly. You're not going to find this in this structure, but it's all going to be on your handout someplace under innovatives. They're typically sociable. They're typically friendly people. They know they're innovative, and so they're really in tune with their feelings. Now, what I did not say is that they are extroverts. Because an innovative could be an extrovert, outgoing, an innovative could be an introvert. My wife is an extroverted innovative, and my Jonathan is an introverted innovative. If they walked in this room, and I said, hey, it's good to see you, Bonnie. I said, let me introduce my wife, Bonnie, and Jonathan to everybody in the room. And my wife would just smile from ear to ear. She would probably come over and introduce herself and say, it's nice to meet you. And my Jonathan would start right here with red. And then he would start going like this. Afraid that I was going to ask him to say something. Both innovative, both process based on feelings. A few weeks ago I said, Jonathan, would you like to go to Stone Mountain this morning and let's spend the night and we can pick Summer up with her friends tomorrow morning down in Atlanta? Didn't say a word. Went down to his bedroom. I went downstairs. I said, do you want to go or not? He said, look, I would like to go, but I don't like it when you ask me to do things, big things like this on the same day that you want to do it. So I don't want to go. That's an innovative response. Why? Because I didn't give him time to process how he feels about going and spending the night and being away from home, even at 17. All right, if you are the leader and you're innovative, your natural inclination will be sympathy and friendliness. So take these characteristics in mind, and let's assume that we are in our classroom, the door opens up, it's an innovative child. We don't know if they're innovative at this point, doesn't matter. We're getting our act together, we're putting our things out, we're sharpening pencils or whatever it might be. An innovative walks through the door and we go like this. Oh, hey. And we go back to what we're doing. What did I just say to the innovative child? You're not welcome, you're not important, and my tasks are more important than your feelings. Now the innovative walks through the door, and I know they're innovative. So I go like this, putting my stuff out. Hey, it is so good to see you, Dave. Come here, man. Wow, those are really cool, whatever. And the innovative probably wants you to give me a hug. And now the innovative say, this is going to be a great day in Sunday school. See? That is the beginning of that great day for the innovative in Sunday school or anything. The innovative says, I like to be in a situation where I can listen, process with my feelings, and then you give me a time to speak back to you. They're good listeners. After they listen, they want you to be quiet and let them talk. So they want to know the big picture. Start with what I already know and build on it. Show me the big picture because that makes me feel secure. That's why when I dropped this bomb on Jonathan about going to Stone Mountain, he didn't know how I felt about it. He didn't know what we were going to be doing exactly, where we might be staying, any of those things. And until he got that information and had time to process it, he was not willing to give an answer. If you're the teacher and you're innovative, you are going to, okay, now I'm innovative, I'm the teacher. The door opens up, I look, it doesn't matter what learning style is there. I'm going to run over and say, hey, it's good to see you, give me a... And some of the learning styles are saying, get back, no touch. You're innovative, get away from me. And the innovative says, these are the things I want you to do at least one time every Sunday for me. And then I will do the things I don't like. So the innovative says, I like, wow, look at this. The innovative says, I like all the things that allow me to be expressive and to work with other people. The innovative says, I do not like timed tests because the timed test creates stress. The innovative says, I don't like debates because a debate could turn into confrontation and argument. That's why when you say to the innovative, hey, let's go have lunch today after church. Where would you like to go? The innovative says, you. You know why they do that? Because internally they're afraid if they make a choice that we don't like, that it will hurt and cause problems or an argument. They also say they don't like computer education. I did not say they don't like computers. They don't like computer education because it's too impersonal and they do not do well with virtual school. They like computers because computers will allow them to be creative. So years ago, when this had actually been done on a typewriter, and we did not have personal computers, I gave it to my wife and said, would you take it to work? And would you do this, format it on your computer and bring it home? This is the next revision. Because she brought it home and she says, look what I did. And I'm reading it. She says, oh, don't read it. She says, look at the pretty border I put around it. There's no border now because she had everything reversed. I cut, I pasted, and I never told her that she did it wrong because it would have hurt. I said, I can cut it, I can tape it, and I can photocopy it, no big deal. As soon as I got my first computer, I fixed this sucker. I wanted it my way, now I've lost the track. There it is, okay. All right, they don't like the common sense learner. Look on your first chart, because they are diametrically opposed to one another. They are polar opposites. They don't like the common sense learner. Because the common sense learner is a non-people person. The common sense learner likes all the things that they don't like. So they don't like those people as their teachers. The innovative says, I work best when, just tell me why I'm doing this. Show me why I'm doing this. But what's interesting is the innovative says, I need to think out loud. Do you know what that means? They need to talk to their self. For years, I thought my wife had somebody living in her closet. Every morning, she had a discussion about what she was going to wear. And one morning I said, who are you talking to in there? She says, I'm talking to myself, leave me alone. And I says, I'm going to leave both of you alone. They like a regular work schedule, and they want to be involved with people. Let me go back. Did I do everything? Yes. All right, so innovators. People like to work in a group. They need time to process based on their feelings. They know they're innovative. They need you to support them, make them feel comfortable, and they need you to do one activity in that classroom where they're involved with other people. That might be as simple as pairing up with someone else while they do the disciple activities. Because what we've learned is, in our dominant learning style, if we get one time where our preferred teaching method is used, we're willing to do the things we don't like. All right, our analytic friends. Our analytics are curious, they're theoretical. They love solving problems, especially complex problems, and they think with their head. So they want you to give them lots of factual information. And that's why Explore Scripture in the Teacher's Guide is so much fun for the analytic. Because they're getting into the Word. They love it when you've got a timeline on the wall and you're showing them where everything fits together. And they say, yes, this is good stuff. There was an analytic that must have asked me what was happening in China when Paul was on his second missionary journey. The analytic's sitting there thinking, well, I'm yakking. And he says to himself, I wonder what's going on. So he asks the question. If I am the teacher, my inclination will be to come in with tons of information. And very often, tons of information is a way for me to not have to have a relationship with the kids. Because I just give information, give information, give information. When the analytic walks through the classroom, being a non-people person, they come in the door, and you turn around and you go, good to see you. And the analytic goes, whew, dodge that bullet, he didn't come give me a hug. That's what the analytic is thinking. The analytic says, sometime in the class, give me an opportunity to get into the Word and gather facts. Let me get the answers to the question. Let me gather facts. Again, as a teacher, if you're analytic, you'll naturally be an information giver because analytics typically prefer to manage information, not people. It's easier. The analytic says, look at the things I enjoy. I love lectures and stories and drills, and they are extremely competitive. I like demonstrations and object lessons. I like programmed instruction. What are they saying? They're saying, let me be involved in all the things that never ever demand that I share my feelings. Look at the things they don't like. They don't like any of the things that the innovative loves. Sure, because it might require them to share their feelings. If an analytic, okay, follow my thinking here. If an analytic was going to describe an innovative, give me one word the analytic might say about the innovative. What? Incompetent, unorganized, come on. Too sensitive, too emotional. He's a total airhead. And then the innovative, hearing those things from the analytic, might say, you are so cold and cruel. Don't you have any? And the analytic says, not really. Not about this. It's not that important. The analytic says, I work best when tell me what is expected and make sure it's realistic and practical. What the analytic, even from a young age, does not want. They don't like coming into a classroom. Let me give you a perfect example. They come into your K1 classroom. And to kill a little time, we have coloring pages laid out that have nothing to do with the lesson. And the analytic is thinking, what a waste of my time. Because the analytic says, I want it to be realistic and practical and don't surprise me. What does that mean? The analytic is saying, when you get into the mode of shooting off questions as the teacher, if I want to answer a question, I will raise my hand. And the worst thing we can do for the analytic is to do something like this. My, Catherine, you haven't said a word today. Do you know the answer to the question? What do you think? And Catherine is saying, I think you're a jerk. Because I did not raise my hand. The analytic says, don't surprise me like that. When I'm ready to contribute, I will raise my hand and make a contribution. The analytic also says, I want to think and then act, so don't shoot off rapid fire questions at me. The analytic says, I do want to receive recognition for my accomplishments. I don't want my name in the bulletin. I don't want the congregation to stand up and applaud, but come to me and say, Jenny, that was great. It was a great contribution. It shows me you've been thinking. And I appreciate your contribution to the class today. That's all the analytic wants from me. Okay? The common sense. The common sense shares some characteristics with the analytic. The characteristics they share is that analytics and common sense are both non-people. So they would prefer to work out rather than in our silly groups. Sure. The common sensor and the analytic both look at small groups where we might say, okay, let's break up into groups, read the scripture, and share your opinion. And they're both saying, gag me with a spoon. I'm not interested in anyone's opinion, and I can see that you have the answer right there on your yellow pad, so don't waste our time, just give us the answer. But the common sensor, when we're asking questions, because the common sensor is active, it is very frequent that the common sensor will answer your question before you even finish asking it. And they always think they have funny answers to everything you ask. Now the common sensor can either be a total perfectionist or a total slob. They go either way. Rare that they would be a perfectionist today and a slob tomorrow. They usually fall into a rut and stay in that rut. They think in logical sequences, and life has logical consequences. The common sensor is the one that would say, sorry, bud, you did the crime, you're doing the time. They don't have a lot of compassion for people. They also want your teaching to be realistic and practical. Now, the common sensor learns by asking, is this valid? Is what you're telling me today valid? Can I use it the moment I leave this classroom? And if they don't see it as valid, they say, then why are we having to learn it? And this is the kid that comes home from school and says, why do I have to learn this dumb math? I will never use it. Sure, that's your common sense. Common sense learners want to make sure it can be applied to real life. As a teacher, they will be a challenger. They will challenge, thank you. They will inquire with you, and they will take logical steps, and everything in life has to be just. And remember, these are the people that like to make all the, but not have to follow them. Now look at the things they like. They love solving problems. So if there's not a problem in your classroom, they're going to create a problem. So now this kid walks through your door and you turn around and you know their common sense. And here's what I do to them. I say, you're late. And there's a lot of stuff I needed you to do this morning. Would you please get over and put these papers out and sharpen these pencils and get this stuff going? Kids are going to be arriving. And the common sense would say, yes! Finally he realizes he can't do it without me. That's the way they think. They love doing workbooks and Bible games because they are challenging. And they can finish first and try and make the rest of the class look like a bunch of... What's their favorite word? Come on, think. The whole world is a bunch of... Somebody has it. They're not saying it. Come on. They're a bunch of... idiots. You didn't want to say it. The whole world's an idiot except them. One of the best preachers in America is common sense. Alistair Begg. Alistair Begg is pastor of Parkside Church in Ohio. He's common sense. He has a son that's innovative. And he said one day he was driving down the road, his innovative son's in the back seat, someone cut him off, and he said to his wife, did you just see that? Idiot. What he did, and he had some words to say about it. When he finished, his innovative son in the back seat says, and there you have it, folks, another encouraging word from your pastor. The common sense kids are a struggle in the classroom. They're disruptive. They're disrespectful oftentimes. And they have this insatiable need for attention. And they'll do whatever they need to do to get that attention.